if you allow me.
Karen gives you a nod.
Out of character, because I seem to be having internet troubles, I'm going to also just post this for people to read, as I'm going to try reading it out, but if I disconnect, I might disconnect.
Sure.
Post it in chat as well. As Lanus will, with the lute in hand, slow and... It is a sad playing, slow and deep tones, just to echo the somber mood. Oh, sorry. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay. And Lanus will begin to play away. Slow and respectful. As he sings to the music he plays. Oh, sweet song that is no more, little bird who is gone. You who fought all along, sword in hand by our side, may his valor give you pride. O young knight, courageous you were. O sweet song that is no more, little bird who is gone. Fell so young we mourn the night, may the stranger watch him now. May we remember how you fought, with fire and flames you stood right. O sweet song that is no more, little bird who is gone, growing strong your will would sow, ours is the fury that served you right. Despite the peace you were forced to fight, in winter's grasp we say goodbye. O sweet song that is no more, little bird who is gone, yours was the song that filled the night, no song so sweet, yours was right. O sweet song that is no more, little bird who is gone, young knight who served well, little bird who is gone.
Bravo.
Oh, that's a cute song.
I would also going to know, I'd also like to spend a destiny point to ensure it's extra impactful on Lord Karen.
Sure, makes sense. You perhaps see a slight crack in his stern demeanor, a slight smile, perhaps, at a memory.
As Lanus will
His hand moving over the sort of red cliff. There's no clapping, because that would be very inappropriate. But
he just bows and takes a step back.
Sir Mikan certainly gives you a friendly sort of nod, seemingly thankful at your performance. Karen looks over you. Does anyone else step forward?
Decim could say something, I suppose. He'll take a few steps forward. A little bit precarious up on the cliff, but say I have a... It is very simple and short. We owe Manfer much. House Caladan. He took to the field when others fled the battle. He stood firm, like as was his duty and was his wont. He braved the flames, he braved the Dornish snakes, he braved the ambush, and he braved the darkness. He stood against it, and by his sacrifice we live. Something I am eternally thankful for. He bows and says, so, as simple as that. Thank you. I'll step back a little bit.
Karen's strong gaze sort of moves around. Says, with those words as a memory for the squire and for Karen. Next to says, those who stand vigil, stay. These two bannermen both stay.
Alark stays.
It's Elaine's will try, so this is going to be interesting.
Then Decim and Nemo will walk down the mountain then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The rest is sort of reserved for the warriors, so to speak.
Desmond doesn't want to stay.
No, he's not a warrior. He never was.
Sure. Well, look at those who remain. Our vigilance shall now begin. And you hear the sort of the chisel begin chopping into the prepared space where the face will be made. It's a little distance away, as the closest faces are the oldest one. We shall stand in the heat of the sun. Through the cold of the night, we shall be unwavering in honor of his memory. We shall stand from when the sun falls to when it returns, and when it once more falls. May the gods see our vigil. So to the carver, it says, Sir. The carver nods. Then Lord Karen stands, basically turns away from the cliff with all the faces, looking in the same directions as they do. The rest stand up with him, looking away from the faces, out over the barren mountains, basically. In the distance, you can sort of see the castle of Nightsong and the fresh green lands of the Reach. And Stormlands, I suppose. Looking at what this sacrifice was made for. Nemo will come back, given some food and water and such, but no one at the keep really seems to be, talking much. It is a sad occasion.
Yeah. Decim will spend his time in the hall, drinking, eating some, sitting in a comfy chair if you can find one.
Sure.
Looking into the flames, contemplating.
Now, while the vigil happens, we will go back to respite. How much is Bree going outside? What does she do in these days? Still stay in her room?
Yes, even more so now. She has slipped into despondency, a great lethargy, and presumably the Maester is going to stop visiting, if only because he's being further taxed, and then eventually he's going to go, right?
Yeah, he has left at this point.
Yeah, that pretty much takes away Bree's only interaction. She has greatly exercised the freedom that Lord Halen has given her to be able to circumvent eating. And while she will pick at food that's delivered to her, she definitely does grow thin, almost to like a state where she was kept prisoner. Pretty much all of her time is spent staring at the window or staring in a mirror that she has in her room, or staring at the bed, or trying to lose herself in books. She is trying to process everything, and quite frankly, she's too young to come up with an answer that is satisfactory to her. She can't process it all, and not really having anyone else that she feels comfortable to go to, particularly after the rest of the party's left. She's just defaulted to nothing.
She will hear after having quite a few days of just sort of silence. Rosette will have probably looked in with some food sometimes, but this time the steps outside are different. They're heavy. The metal boots of guards. As someone opens the door and walks into her room, basically.
Bree will rotate her head slowly, not having had much in the way of comfortable sleep, finding herself often seeing the eyes of the shadow cat. She is rather, as noted before, lethargic, and her normal keen awareness, as honed by the water dancing methods, is very sluggish.
Uh-huh. Well, she will see her Lord Halen Caladan, wearing his travel gear, his beautifully polished silvery armor, and everything really. As he steps in, with him is the strange alchemist that has been hanging out in the basement.
Okay, well, upon seeing him, she will blink in surprise and sort of stagger up to her feet and bow as best as she can, and trembling voice says, "My lord."
He will look around, basically sniff a few times in the air. She probably hasn't showered a lot, bathed a lot. He will frown slightly as he looks around. Little sister, as the alchemist closes the door.
She keeps her bowed posture.
Says, "Please sit down."
She will sit.
Walk over here. Says, he sort of looks at her, walks around slightly pacing. "I fear that I must interrupt your solitude, for it is time for us to have a conversation." Begins, looking at her, standing, looking down at her sitting. "You are of my blood, we are kin, and I know you have been wounded. There's no reason to hide that." "I know that you have not learned of the gods, sister. And I understand that you will not like my questions, but I am your lord, and I will need to decide your future. I ask you then," she sort of looks around her room, maybe searching for a religious symbol, "which of the civ do you revere and respect more?"
Bree lifts her head, although she has been sitting, she has kept it in a bowed position so as to avert her eyes, and a rather perplexed statement says, "Well, my lord, my time with Galt, the house's weaponsmith, has taught me more about the smith than anyone else."
Says, "And yet you must know the basic virtues that each represent, do you not? Which speaks to you more?" He seems to be very cold, as if he's steeled himself to be in that way.
Bree gives a further baffled look and says, "I don't know much in the way of their virtues, my lord. If my understanding of our family's history is that the seven are not much to be discussed here. Uncle does not value them in There were the Lornmen.
He nods slightly and says, I see. I'm sorry that you have been given such neglect, sister. Perhaps then, if you would allow me to tell you, the father is our icon of judgment. He carries the scales, and when you pray to him, you pray for justice. The mother, sort of smiles slightly, she is our fertility and compassion. She shows us all mercy when we ask for it. There's the warrior who gives us strength in battle. He will lend you his courage if you but ask. There's the maiden, a protector of the innocent and of a young lady's virtue. Again looks at you. The smith, as you might know, gives you strength in crafts and in arms. The crone gives us wisdom and shows us light when we are in darkness. She gives us guidance and aids us in making wise decisions. So, which of them speaks to you more?
Bree bites down on her lip. Her eyes narrow, and she asks, clarification, my lord. The smith, he does laboring things. Is which of these focus on duty, my lord?
He nods and say, that depends on the duty. A man's duty is that of the father. A soldier's duty is that of the warrior. A mother's duty is that of the mother. The maiden's duty is that of the maiden. A servant's duty, that of the smith. And an elder's duty is that of the crone.
Then perhaps the smith is most fitting, my lord, for I am a servant.
And says, and that is the future that you wish for yourself. To serve the smith as a servant.
I don't know, my lord. I have never given it any thought until you asked.
She nods slowly. Sister, I am of a mind to bring you a teacher. I understand that most would see you sent to Highgarden to be a lady at the court, but I do not think that you would fit well in there. This perhaps is a mercy on my part. You have this dancing instructor, I understand.
That is so, my lord, though she has...
She?
Bree looks up for the first time at Halen and says, "It's my limited understanding, Lord, is that it's complicated. Uncle really hasn't explained it to me."
He nods. Yes, regardless, you shall be sent a teacher, and should you not behave well and learn how to be a proper lady with those things that it includes, it will prove that your dancing instructor has spoiled you rather than aided you in your recovery. Should that happen, I will have to punish him as the Seven would have me punish a man who breaks a young lady in such a way. His eyes sort of darken slightly. I'm sorry to say this, but our house cannot afford to have you in this state of constant suffering. I know it hurts deeply. He looks at her. I know that you feel anger at the injustice that happens in the world, that you hate the world. But at times, such anger Such injustice is needed for someone to realize that duty is above all things. You should look to the gods, sister, for only they can help you get through the world you now find yourself in. Looks at her. Do you think perhaps this motivation would aid in your behavior? To be a better servant?
Bree furrows her brows, looks away from Halen and says, "You know more about these things than I do, my lord. If you think that an instructor to properly teach me the rites and messages of the seven would aid me in aiding this house, then I will agree to your judgment."
Good. And it will not only be knowledge of the seven. You are a lady, and you have a lady's duties. However, I fear you are under-equipped to handle them. A warrior, perhaps, had you been a boy, it would be much simpler. He shakes his head slightly. But we must all fulfill our duty, no matter how little we may like them. I shall ask for a teacher then, who can teach you to be a good lady in service, and then perhaps when you're older we can speak of sending you to Highgarden.
Is there anything else you would have of me, my lord?
He frowned slightly. Says, "No. I would have you leave your room. Wash yourself, show to the meals. I shall no longer have you stay in here. Fresh air is good for you."
Visibly trembling, she'll say, "As my lord requests."
Okay, Caladan says, "Very well then, I shall see you at supper." Then he turns and says, "Good day to you, sister." Mrs. Halen is standing in the corner. She just follows him out as they leave.
Bree, still visibly trembling, will wait until her brother and that curious fellow that she doesn't really know or recognize leave.
Mm-hmm.
And she stops trembling so much in her tired, exhausted eyes. That spark of anger returns. And Bree whispers a question to herself. Did he just threaten Nini?
Bitch
Sure
got
did.
fucked up.
Pretty sure it did.
Oh my god.
And so as to not provoke any further lectures today, she will push her body up, realizing how stiff it's become, and with a clearer focus of purpose, will do exactly as her lord has requested.
Good. We'll even give her a smile when she shows to supper. Sees her eating the pea soup.
Yes. She will keep her eyes averted, though, and not attempt to engage him in discussion.
Sure. That seems to fit him well enough. Though the dinner is very sort of quiet with just the two of you and Agatha eating in silence.
Agatha's not gushing about the baby or anything?
She might, but she...
The couple's kicked her out.
Halen doesn't really seem to talk much about that. He just seems to be really a downer for those sorts of things.
Oh my god, what a downer.
Like, he doesn't seem... He accepts it like, yes, there was a baby.
Wow, he really needs to get laid.
It is good.
He is.
You know,
that's not his problem.
He is. It's because he cannot show his true love to the Gorm dude. He's like, I love him so much, but what I
true.
love is forbidden.
It's forbidden by the gods.
Yes. He's
No,
crying every day.
Bree has no
Writes
intention.
poetry about it.
Bree has no intention of challenging of him, Manikai. But that night, she is actually going to go and knock at Rosette's door.
Oh, sure. Rosette will answer it pretty immediately, wearing sort of a long, at this point, purple like dress, though it's cut up a little bit in the corset so that she can still move freely. Not really. It's sort of a weird blend of cultural influence as she opens and looks down at you and says, "Bree." Clearly surprised.
Bree, the thinned and emaciated and perhaps slightly paled Bree, probably still looking haggard, but the eyes that were so glazed over and confused now burn and lock onto Rosette with fury.
Rosette frowns and takes a little bit of a step back and says, "Come in."
Bree walks in and very calmly closes the door.
So we'll go to the little table that's in here and basically pull out a chair to sit down. She's a little taken aback by this and a little speechless, really.
And Bree fluidly stalks to sit down as well. The fury has returned. That has laid dormant for a quarter moon, a half moon, and it is pulsing in her temples.
Mm-hmm. Zip will take out for the flask of cider that's on the table, fill a glass for Bree and put it over to her.
Bree will slowly let her eyes linger down to it, lift it to take a sip.
It's very sweet.
Focus back on Rosette, not really tasting it.
Uh-huh. Zip pours herself one, swings it around a little bit, drinks a little heavily from it. As she looks at Bree.
I have been thinking, sister.
She says, "How can I help?"
Your actions and words gave me trouble, sister. After the shadow cat, monster, whatever, you were not getting much in the way of sleep, and I was worried for you. You said words that confused me and required me to think.
She nods and says, "Yes, I recall."
How are you feeling now, Rosette?
She says, "A lot has happened since we last spoke. I am not sure that I can call myself truly Donish anymore. Though my thoughts on some things haven't changed."
Yes. I, until today, had avoided a conversation with the new lord of the house. However,
shifts nervously.
He swept into my room, as was his lordly noble right, and shared words with me about a few topics, one of which involved the Seven and further education to ensure that I become a proper noble lady so that he could best determine my future whenever I became older.
Rosette nods.
And there was also a rather severe threat towards someone I care deeply for. And Rosette, my family. No. The people I care for matter a great deal to me. I would never see them harmed, ever.
Rosette nods. I would feel the same way.
The new lord of the house has not endeared himself in such a fashion. I have curiosity, Rosette, as to how the new lord may suffer a regrettable and unfortunate accident now that my uncle has sent your troops away.
She nods slightly and says, I have no doubt that there are plans in motion, perhaps, but I am not the person in charge of them. Seems perhaps we should talk of this outside the keep. Says, I can tell you what little I know, if you're sure that you want to know.
Bray's eyes flit around, considering the possibility that someone might be nosying in. She looks back at Rosette and says,
Oh yes, I want to know.
Nods and says, then perhaps we should go for a ride, or two. The forest helps me think.
Bree stands up abruptly.
Then so it shall be. A ride.
So basically, go take her horse and ride out. Seeming a little less nervous when she gets on her horse and has her things and gets out of the keep.
Sure.
She says, now that we're away from listening ears, looking at the forest, would you perhaps state directly what it is you're asking me?
The Lord of the House has directly threatened both myself as well as Nini, my instructor, as he so politely called dance instructor. I do not think I am in a position in my status to change his mind, not without severe lying that anyone could easily disrupt. His piety has disrupted my uncle, has disrupted you, has disrupted myself and Nini, and threatens this house. I no longer wish for him to be Lord.
Says, we share that much, at least. A lordship can only really move at this point in one way, and he is healthy and strong from what it seems. His return was unexpected and swift, and he has spent time now gaining knowledge and speaking to many people around the place and lands. Everyone knows that he is the Lord, and will likely be so for years to come. Barring, of course, that something were to happen. There are people who would rather see, he scoffs a little bit, myself, perhaps, as a more important figure in this house. It is not something that I have spoken much of, for I have so far rather would not know about such plans, but if you believe that this is so dire that we would need to take an active role, perhaps whatever plans might be in motion could be sped up somewhat.
Bree says, I think I have time, at least. After all, I am young and need to be taught properly the ways of the seven and how to be a proper lady. Whether the house has time, I could not say.
Johnson says it would be easiest if he were to visit the Dornish somehow, or it happening here would be unlikely, especially after what recently occurred.
Bree puffs out a breath of hot air and says, I never mentioned to him the deep well keep, although I cannot fathom that he would be so interested in going there himself unless he were somehow convinced that it had immediate value
that he would see to it personally.
Do you think your uncle would approve of this?
Bree says, my uncle, absolutely. He has no care for the seven, has never at once, except through presumably lying teeth and tongue, has he ever demonstrated any fealty to the gods. He has been thoroughly disrupted and upset by this Halen. It was expected of this family that Lanny would be the one who would become the Lord, and he has shirked from that, what was the word the Lord used, duty?